Hey everybody, this is Silver Spook, and this is the Silver Spook video about the mental decline of empire and the sad embarrassment that was the U.S. presidential debates, which I 100% admit I did not watch the majority of it because what is even the point? Um, but yeah, we're gonna talk about that's kind of the central starting point because it is probably on the at the front of a lot of people's minds right now. So somebody might click on this. Um, and but more broadly, I'm not really gonna be discussing who won the debate, or I don't really care who lost. I think probably even a lot of people who identify as Americans will not necessarily care all that much either. Um, but yeah, I want to kind of focus on the concept of the implosion as part of the decline of empire, as part of the collapse of the United States and the West. The really it's a multi-millennium world civilizational planet-changing event or series of events that's rapidly happening right now, and kind of thinking about what is happening, trying to just get a hold on the rapid turbulent waters we're swimming in. Part of that is the psychological aspects to it. Like I was just listening to some of the discussions coming out of the not West, let's say. There's there's a lot of talk of like it's from the outside of the Western U.S. NATO perspective. The economic, the military changes have already happened. It's the U.S. and the West have lost the U.S. has lost its primacy. It is not the world hegemon, if it ever was. Really, a lot of that was confabulated from the U.S.'s Cold War enemies perspective, and many people who have been in their military. All of the hegemony was not as hegemonic as they would like to think, in a sense of actually being able to militarily enforce their will. They caused great suffering, and they manipulated and lied to a lot of people. That's really what they've always excelled at. But whatever was the American planetary hyperpower, right? The 20th century Roman Empire, whatever that was, the combination of all the European, which is just the Roman Empire, basically spread throughout that the not very large tail end of West Asia. It's called Europe. That just became the U.S. Empire after. It's really the U.S. Empire is just the Roman Empire spreading into Europe, and Europe spreading into the United States, and then spreading to the Earth, the entire Earth. But that whatever that was, that's gone. This is the what's causing the mental decline, not just of these two clowns pretending to be some kind of leader of some kind, right? What is causing the decline, not of Joe Biden, obviously Joe Biden. It's really, oh man, watching both of these people, but especially Biden. It almost feels like watching like a little child being beaten. It feels almost like watching something you feel like, oh, is this legal for me to be watching this? This is like, elder abuse. I mean, not that anybody particularly likes Joe Biden, except for some of the worst people in the world. But like, Joe, he's gone. It's like watching somebody at the late stage who needs like intensive care, like 24/7 dementia, like late stage Alzheimer's dementia suffering, octogenarian, which he literally is, They should be, getting, they should be like in a medical facility, like getting assistance with their inability to like just live, right? Their mind is just, in bits and pieces, like, I mean, most people, why shouldn't I say most people? A lot of people have seen people with serious degenerative, brain illnesses, dementia, cognitive decline, right? It gets really ugly. The person that was there, they're not there anymore. Not that the person that Joe Biden was a good person. That guy was a horrible, actually horrible person. They're both horrible people on this. Yes, Donald Trump was a horrible. Not to be confused with Haribo, the delicious candy. The horrible people. But anyway, so it almost feels like, am I committing a crime by watching this? Because this guy and it's not new. Everybody knows for a long time. He's been like wandering off, like the president of France and the leaders of the so-called great Occident of NATO, right? Or had a conference just like a couple weeks ago, and Joe Biden just turned around and started staring off at like some random construction worker, like on a golf course, or somebody working on something that was not what the photo op was about. And then the heads of France and slightly but barely more functional leaders, really, they don't have dementia necessarily, but they're all, they're just westernized liberal brainwormed people. They're just like staring off with Joe Biden to make him seem less, just completely, mentally unwell and unable to function. It's kind of like why are people allowing this to even be seen? Because somebody is allowing this to be seen. The people who actually run the West, the United States, etc. They're allowing Joe Biden. They put him in power, and they're allowing him to wander around. Like completely forget what he was saying, just stare off into the distance, talk about people that are dead, talk about himself as a senator, and in one sentence, and then talking about himself as, forgetting what he's saying, and then coming back and saying, it's great that we invaded Vietnam, and I'm for the Vietnam War. Like in 2024, he doesn't know what year it is. Like more than half of the time. They say he's only functional for maybe a couple hours to maybe 4 hours a day, if you're lucky. I mean, this is common with people who have like serious mental decline. Like that's what happens. That's if your neurons begin to fuse together because either because of normal aging process, entropy, and you're just the process of your cells splitting, mitosis, slowing down, increasing rates of mutation. It's just a natural aging process that causes cognitive decline. Or if you get a COVID, 6, 7, 8 times, right, and you tell everybody that it's fine to get, which does cause omlitification of your neurons, microthrombosis, the bursting of the blood vessels in your brain, and a whole host of other horrible problems. All of your dendrites are not dendriting properly. Your axons are losing their axles in your brain because you got COVID. In addition to just all the other factors that will increase your cognitive decline. That's what it looks like. So what? So I mean, there's that. That's arguably allowing Donald Trump and Joe Biden, the people who actually run the U.S. that is not a democracy. None of the West is a real democracy. Part of the mental illness of the entire West. I'm not talking about Joe Biden. I'm talking about conservative, liberal, progressive, rich and poor, like middle class, whatever there exists of it. French and American, Canadian and Spanish, British and German alike. There is a mental illness in the fraudulent belief in the legitimacy and in the greatness of your own so-called democracy, right? And the great successes of your so-called capitalist system, which is tied to many other systems, and your so-called rules-based order. That's actually a mental illness. I mean, Ansar Allah, is our friends our friends that are mentally well, because they are, as a civilization, because they are stopping genocide, right? The fact that I can't even say words on this, large public forum of streaming in the West, right? That is itself a sign of a psychological illness, right? It's not even just about the rights of freedom of speech and the ability for people to have, you know, discourse in a so-called vibrant so-called democracy, right? It's actually like that's deep denial, right? If you literally, you can't even say words, right? It's like a digital technological, it's like a exo it's a exabyte, it's a multi exabyte manifestation of digital manifestation of Western mental illness, like embodied in the the COBOL and the C# and the SQL of the West infrastructure, when you can't even talk about things, right? And that's part of the mental what one of the serious aspects of a mental illness is deep denial and like dissociation, right? Like just like, from whatever, some of them is conscious, some of it's the subconscious, some of it just like is just trying to cope, right? Because people talk about coping and smoking copium when you read the New York Times, right? It's like, oh, that's a more liberal or conservative copium. We're reading a Fox or New York Times. But coping is a mechanism, right? Coping is a mechanism, and all it has to do with psychology. It's a psychological band-aid, right? It's a psychological Tylenol, right? It's helping your mind that can't deal with the reality you're witnessing, right? It's like, if you're on a train, as Ozzy Osbourne once sung, going off the rails on a crazy train, right? And I don't want to sing it because I don't want to get a melody copyright strike, but if you're going off of a cliff, right, like a roadrunner, like a coyote running off a cliff, or you're on a train that's heading to the inevitable doom or crash, right? You're not completely there yet, but you're like watching and you're going there, right? That and you're seeing events happening right around you. You're gonna be in a really psychologically, that alone, just the impending catastrophe that you don't even know how to avoid, right? That will cause you to be in an extreme, just to worrying about your life, worrying about your future, worrying about like the end of all that you thought you knew. I mean, whether or not you're literally gonna die, but if you believe in the United States, because I talked about, like last week, I talked about, like, in the last few streams, I talked about who is America, right? This is another thing. The mental decline of the United States and Europe is not just about people individually being psychologically in dissociative cognitive dissonance and unable to like rectify and resolve what they're seeing in GAZA, what they're seeing in all of these conflicts around the world that they're losing, right? And they're unable to, and some of them are not. Last week I talked about the draft, right? Some people are unable to, they can't, they can't deal with the fact that what they're doing is horrible. It's terrible. It's GENOCIDE, and it's also they can't keep supporting, or they're in a dissonance where like, if I quit the military, I don't have how am I gonna pay for my house and my food, and I have a wife, I have kids, I have a partner, I have kids. How am I gonna keep paying for my bills and keep the electricity on, right? But at the same time, it's like, but I can't keep going along with this project, right? So a lot of people are defecting. I mean, they're de-Americanizing, they're de-Euroizing even a lot of it. They say like actually in a lot of Europe, I mean, people are like, they don't even want to identify as Europeans. A lot of people don't want to identify as I've seen Jewish people say, I don't want to even identify as Jewish. I mean, because of what they're seeing, they're happening, and like the connotations that all of that is. So there's identity, existential crises in the minds of people. Um, like you know, I don't know, like what I thought we were good, but we're not. I mean, everybody in the West, what makes you a Westerner, is having, as I mentioned in a previous video, right? At some point in your life, you and usually at almost all points in your life, especially if you like actually do any serious thinking, and aren't just completely brain dead, which a lot of Westerners will choose to be. It's the just live in complete illusions all day long. If you think about things for a second, you're gonna come to the conclusion that, if you listen to anybody who actually does thinking, that maybe we're not the good guys. Maybe we never deserved domination. Maybe why are we doing all the war crimes around the world? Why are we the ones that unalive the children and the women? Why are we've killed these millions of people everywhere we go, right? It's not just what's happening in the current war in the Middle East, or the current horrible slaughter in the Middle East, right? This has always been the case. The U.S., Korean War, Vietnam War, Afghanistan, Syria, every single conflict, every single sanction, it's all been women and children, innocent people, innocent women, children, and men. It's all been punishing civilians. It's never been fighting, as I talked about last time. It's never been winning wars in stand-up fights, and it's never been on the right side of history. And that goes all the way back through the entire history of the colonial era, the last 500 years, Britain, France, Spain. It's always been genocide by cowards, and at best, seriously underperforming militaries. The second, and this is actually a natural thing, because people don't want to fight. It's not just, human beings, as an organism, do not like aspire to like be evil. I mean, despite however comic books and Western stories like to kind of drum it up. Oh, these people are just like Lord of the Rings. Like, these orcs and goblins are like genetically, by their nature, predisposed to be evil, and these are the good elves and the dwarves and some of the humans. Whatever, that itself is a lie. That is a Western lie. It's Western. It doesn't really, not Africa, Asia, Latin America, much of the Pacific doesn't tell themselves these kinds of stories, right? These are like deep, like they're most serious. They seriously emanate from Europe, Greece, Rome, and then the European region. These kind of stories of the good and the evil that's like intrinsic to people. The way that people actually are, right? The way that people actually are is that they aspire to do what is best, and they have, a moral sense, like not harm themselves, obviously, generally, and not harm other people. And, they care about nature collectively and plants and animals. But, of course, you have to survive, right? And sometimes that might involve, that has to involve ultimately disruption of, to an extent, other lives. But, like Native Americans will be like, well, I'm sorry, thanking the deer. A lot of Native peoples, Asian, African, Latin American, again, like they have understand they're in a relationship with the rest of nature, and sometimes they have to take some of the energy from others, right? Human beings, what I'm trying to get at is that human beings are not like they're not like groups of people, right? Because the Western narrative of reality is like, from going back to Greece, which is there were fallen people, there were Afro-Asiatics, right? And then there are people that deserve to rule. And the people that are on that side, those people on the east and the south of us, right, across the Mediterranean and towards this place far away called China, these people are fallen. Maybe we can help save them by making them more like us, but they're like just intrinsically bad. Like there's a movie 300. You can watch that. It encapsulates, but that's not everybody tells themselves very, very, very unusual and not very helpful bedtime stories like that, right? That's a Western thing. That's part of like undoing your Western mental illness, the mental illness of the colonial mind, right? Because that's part of what that is. That's what that was about. It was about, right? It's about telling yourself, oh yeah, we are the good people: Christian, Greek, Roman, British, French, European, NATO, United States, rules-based international order, liberal. We're the good people, and over there all these are bad people, and we don't really need to learn very much about them, just enough so that we can overthrow them, do color revolution, steal their chief, and then take all their land, kill a bunch of them, unalive a bunch of them, especially by hurting the women and children. And we can lie, and the liberals, we can lie to our own people, the masses, and tell them they're evil so that they'll all go out there and fight them, right? That's the entire history of the West, right? It's about, and then but the thing is, when you lie, so this is where it comes to the why people don't want to fight for the West in the United States, etc. Because when you tell humans that bedtime story that these are intrinsically good people, and those orcs over there, those yellow people over there, those the Russians over there nowadays is a big one. Those Chinese over there, those communists over there, those Africans over there, those indigenous people over there, Native American savages over there, those people in Iraq and those Palestinian, those Hezbollah and what is it, Yemen and all those people over there. Those are all the bad people, and you're the good people. You got to go over there and fight them, right? When you tell people those kind of stories, right? Humans can be like brainwashed and manipulated into believing that for a bit. For a lot of people, though, once you get into combat and you see eye to eye, you see what's happening on the ground, because you kind of have to eventually you have to get to the reality of the war zone, right? Of the zone where of the GENOCIDE zone, right? Once you get there and you see what you're doing, right? Suddenly you have what's called the moral injury, which is like the number one cause actually of suicide amongst U.S. veterans. It's 5, 6, it's up to 10 times higher than anyone else. The suicide rate is not higher in non-Western countries, by the way. So like in of veterans, so like in Vietnam, in Russia, in China, people who fought in their wars, they have trauma obviously because of what they saw and what happened. But the suicide rate and like the self-hate and this kind of deep psychological like breakdown and depression, that's not a result just of the war. The West tortures their soldiers that have to go and actually enforce the will of their unjust rulers. Because when you get there and you realize, oh my God, I'm the bad guy. I'm the stormtrooper. I'm killing it. I'm unaliving innocent people, right? I'm supporting GENOCIDE. Oh my God, even when I'm targeting, I'm giving GPS targeting locations of people's families to the ISRAEL, right? And like Aaron Bushnell, right? And you're like, oh my God, I'm like getting innocent people killed. These people don't deserve this. What are we even doing here? Oh my God, this is just to collect resources for a handful of billionaires. Oh my God. And so then, that is what actually causes. I was just listening to like veterans that have been conscious objectors, like with the Eyes Left and the Veterans for Peace, that are like, that Veterans for Peace is like trying to go through therapy from Western mental illness. Right? Again, you don't need that if you're on the other side of that, because you're like, well, we're just defending. You are actually defending yourselves with the right to defend yourself under a legitimate, non-imperial, non-unjust system, right? But if you're on the U.S., if you're on the British, if you're on the French, if you're on the European side, and you're not completely like mind warped, right? When you go to the front line, it's gonna break you. Not the violence, the knowing that you are the villain. When you believe yourself to be, right? Like I said earlier, you believe yourself. You're taught your whole life for 18 years. You're groomed by your abuser, that is your Western leadership, your liberals, your aristocracy, your oligarchy, your slave drivers ultimately. Well, especially if you're black, and then they force you in the military, or they put you on a cotton picking plantation. But definitely, whatever the case, you are taught that you are the light in the world. You are the light on the hill, and then those are the evil. And then you get there and you're like, oh my God, we're the evil on the hill, and people don't even they don't even. You get there and you realize that the Vietnamese don't actually wish you ill will. They're kind of like, we feel sorry for you, right? Like so many American Western militaries defect routinely to the people they're fighting, right? Now the economics, like this is where it breaks your mind, right? Because you're like, oh my god, wait, but my family, my mom and my dad, everybody I know is back in United States, in Mississippi or in Washington, is some suburb. Oh my god, but like my family in Germany, or they're all in they're in the UK, and I'm over here fighting in Afghanistan. Oh my god, but I these people are better people than my people, right? So this is the deep dilemma that all Westerners, especially the ones in the military, but I mean, at some point you're going to have to deal with this, right? This is the eternal cognitive dissonance that is not, it's unique to the West, right? People live and die in most Asian, the majority of the world, right? They have struggles, right? They have to deal with climate change. They have to deal with sanctions. They have to deal with U.S. Western war. They have to deal with, the people cheat. People have like, romantic encounters, and they have love like people have changed in their life. People have jobs and they lose jobs, right? Those are all struggles you deal with in your life. But there's a unique struggle to the West, which is being brainwashed, which is just being fed this absolute nonsense, and then sent off, and then you do the most horrible things, and then you don't know who you are anymore, right? Not knowing who you are is Western culture, right? Or just having to struggle with the abusive conditioning that you were forced into by a ruling class that has always ruled the West. That is a unique struggle. Whether it's better to have, a 2-bedroom house and a family, and the all of the drained veins of Latin America and Africa and Asia affording you a beautiful suburban life with your bouncy castle in America, but then also have to deal with this cognitive dissonance, right? Being on paper wealthier than an Asian and African, for a lot of the Cold War Russians, being where they have less total resources, they have less total vacation time, vacations, I should say. They have less total cars and trucks. For millennial and Gen Zs and younger, that's not the case anymore, right? So that's part of why they're faster de-Westernizing. But you're gonna always have this dissonance in your mind, right? Now, if you are a sociopath, psychopath, you have malfunctioning mirror neurons, which is that's an actual like hereditary, congenital disorder of the mind. We're talking about mental illness, right? And so if you're like Charles Manson and I simply don't feel things for other people, right? Then you will do very well in the West, in the United States and Europe and Japan's leadership, and Canada and Australia. You do very well if you're okay with, mass starving innocent people, children, disabled people, women, elderly. You like blowing them up. Like what they just had a bombing in a beach in Russia recently. It's like horrible. Cluster bombs on the beach. Like, and people just like, oh, and they're not even pretending, like they're just like, oh yeah, no, we just blow up children. I mean, as long as they're Russian, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Blow up women, children. I mean, they're bad, right? That's it, right? It doesn't matter. The U.S. and Western leadership, they said it out loud. They just said, yeah, it doesn't matter. They're Russians. Women, children, they can all die. They all, but the thing is, they've always thought that. Some of them like just they're Victoria Nuland. They're just like dead behind the eyes, like shark. They're like, they calling Victoria Nuland a shark is an insult to our wet sharp tooth friends. It's like just I don't know what is in there. I love why Madeleine Albright. Oh yeah, we kill 500,000 innocent people. We starve them to death. A small price to pay for just making sure that we had a fun time running the world, right? So this is who runs the West. This is who has always run it. The Romans were the same way. The Greeks were the same way. Yeah, we just enslaved a lot of people, and the women are second-class citizens. But a small price for us to pay, having to bear the heavy burden of enslaving an entire peoples, and to sit back and I don't know what, write words into pieces of paper. Right, but that's the way the United States is, right? They talk a lot. They write books in the New York Times, just like the Greeks and the Romans and the British and the French, about how awesome they are, and they become bestsellers, right? Full of nonsense, right? And then they go kill a bunch of women and children, and go, yes, this is the most free, just, righteous, the most moral armies in the world, the most moral countries in the world. You're gonna anybody who is capable of reading the collective milieu, the zeitgeist, the consensus reality of the United States, the West, any Western ever country, right? You have to already be deeply dissociative. To be a Westerner, it's already to have a mental illness. Basically, you have to already be like broken in the mind, because you can't. Those things are unless you are a complete psychopath, and you have to be good at lying. This is why it's hard for people that are neurodivergent, autistic, have a difficult time being Westerners. That's why they're trying to euthanize all autistic people in Europe. They actually there's bills in Netherlands. If you have autism, you can be executed by the hospital, basically, by withholding basic medications because you're unfit to exist in Western society. But that's what it is. In fact, if you're incapable of like just horrible, disgusting levels of self-delusion, of lying to perpetuate horrible harms, the most horrible evils in the world, which most people aren't, right? If you're not capable of that, you're not going to really succeed as an American, as a British, as a European, because that's what you're going to do. You're going to do that. Whether you're a Goldman Sachs high frequency trading algorithm programmer, right, moving dollars and cents around the world to make economies scream, make people die and starve in Africa and Asia to get imperial foreign policy done, or you're pulling the trigger on the front line. Whatever you're doing, right? You're a lawyer defending huge evil corporations that are burning the planet, right? Taking homes from people for a giant bank. Whatever you do, you're not going to make it. You're not going to make it in the West unless you have serious some combination of self-delusion, just absolute levels of ignorance, which is itself a big problem. Willfully or unwillfully, you are just deeply ignorant. Psychopathy, sociopathy, you're not going to survive as a Westerner. It's literally impossible. That's why I couldn't survive as a Wall Street digital programmer / trader, right? Those are the only jobs that pay any kind of actual gainful employment level of salary, right? You're not going to make. You will not make the money that is required to survive in the Western economic system called capitalism if you are not willing to throw out your morals. You didn't have any morals to begin with. You have the incapacity. You're incapable of feeling empathy, or you're just drunk out of your mind, right? Eating Iron Chef Morimoto, $400, $500,000 meals every night, and just like drowning out the cognitive dissonance with this awesome vacations you're taking as a jet setter, right? If you can't be one of those things, right? Some combination of ignorant, stupid, and just horribly evil, you will never survive as a Westerner in the so-called free democratic world. And people don't realize that, like, that's not the reality for places that are outside of the West that don't operate in that system, right? Like, you can just be a good person in Vietnam and then you have a good life. In Cuba, that's why the U.S. hates Cuba, right? Because Castro is like, hey, I don't need a bulletproof vest. You say, yes, I'm a horrible authoritarian dictator and everyone just wants to kill me, and they just, the Cuban people all hate me. I don't have a bulletproof vest. Even Castro flew to America and he's like, yeah, look, they asked him, like, where's your being a good person, right, under the communism that we are striving towards in our socialist country, being a good person and being loved by the people for doing the will of the people, this is my armor, right? This is my bulletproof vest. The people love me, like they legitimately love me, right? And that's all I need. And Castro turned like dozens of CIA sent assassins because of how much they grew to love him. Even Mende like fell in love with him. Obviously there's, there would be gay, but even like not gay men were like, oh my God, I love Castro so much. From the West, they were sent to kill him. But that's because, part of that was a psychological snapping of a lot of people from the United States that, right, in an intelligence 007 way, right? The military sends you and then you break because you're, oh my God, I'm the bad guy. But when you're an agent, a lot of times agents from the West, this is why their intelligence is never that good. Agents from the West that go to other countries, right, This is why they have to do a lot of conditioning. They have to do a lot of conditioning, not just like physical conditioning and the ability to hide your stealth PP7, your Walter PP7 pistol, when you're playing N64 GoldenEye in your shoe, and be able to speak 7 languages. The conditioning of Western agents is to try to stop them from defecting from the evil, messed up Western side to the communist, socialist, the other side that they're right. Because when you visit these other countries, you're gonna see the difference, right? So they have to be the agents that go. But the thing is, when they send them to Cuba, this is why the U.S. their intelligence has never been that good, right? The 007 Liam Neeson's Taken movies, which is just the modern imperial propaganda. It's the world police propaganda, right? That's all the West makes. It's CIA propaganda. It's called the action thriller, techno thrillers. Tom Clancy BS, and then you've got the Imperial Centurion propaganda is called American military movies, about how it won World War II, which it didn't. It won all the wars it fought, which it didn't. It accidentally slipped and maybe killed some innocent people in Iraq and Afghanistan and Vietnam. It didn't. It intentionally killed lots of millions of innocent people, just like what they're doing in GAZA, right? And then you have the police propaganda, which is about keeping all the people, making you believe that there's a just system of enforcement and equality by people with badges on their shirt in the U.S. There isn't. They beat up people of color and slave drivers, and they evict people for landlords. That's all they are there for. And but when you got to Cuba, you're like, oh my gosh, this guy is amazing. He treats me better than all of my bosses in America that sent me to go and assassinate Fidel Castro, right? And that's why he was never assassinated. The fact that Fidel Castro was never assassinated is a sign of the Western mental illness, and people being broken by just seeing what it's like to live in a actually moral, actually just, actually democratic, actually equal place. Just another example. In Cuba, the president, who is not Fidel Castro, president of Cuba, has been at the front fully voicing support for the liberation and ending the GENOCIDE and GAZA, right? Like in the US, in Canada, in Europe, all around the Western world, and even a lot of the non-Western world, all the complicit puppets, right? Like Saudi Arabia and Egypt, right? Even they're Arabs, right? But they didn't come out and say we must stop these horrible crimes in GAZA. But Cuba has always been at the front. They said, yeah, absolutely, we have to stop. And he's at the front of the protests, right? That's how you can that's how you tell you're not in the West. You're in an actually moral, just, equality, democracy having place. Is that the people can see that their president, right, that they chose, they voted for, they put in power. They can see that their government is on the right side of justice, of humanity, of equality, of what is moral in the world, right? And then the people go, oh, that's really great that we have this really great government. And the government goes, yes, we support you. And they're like, everyone's happy, right? In the West, as I bring up, no Western so-called democratic government has ever had over 50% confidence of the voters for any significant portion of time. It basically never happens. Currently, both Biden and Trump are less than their approval rating is like under 40%, right? Everybody knows that their government is illegitimate. They can see what they're doing. They can see that their government supports the most horrible things in the world. That they're watching these dismembered little babies every day on their phone, and they're watching the people in charge go, yeah, that's totally awesome. In fact, let's blow up some more babies, right? All the governments, all the governments, the whole, you name it, all the G7. There's not even a hint of remorse in any of their eyes. They might say something. Oh, maybe we might have accidentally slipped and killed a few too many thousand of those little children. But today I'm gonna sign a bill that's gonna send some more weapons to kill 10,000. There's no morality in the entire Western world. It's like there's levels of ability to lie. When they're less good at lying, then the mask comes off a little more. But you don't have to wear masks You know what I'm saying? In the global majority, most of the world, you don't have to wear masks. Or it's a mask off moment. They don't have mask off moments in Cuba and Vietnam and these other places because they don't have to wear masks, right? When people say in the West, oh, it was a mask off moment, what they mean is that the mental illness that they all collectively suffer from and inflict upon themselves and others, which is perpetually lying to yourself and to your neighbors, to your friends, to your therapy, even people in therapy, right? You're telling them, oh, no, it's just you. It's not this problem of this entire racist capitalist colonial system. It's just you. If you have some bath bombs, you'll feel better. You are a therapist lying to your own patients, trying to get mental health help, right? So when we talk about the mask off moments, oh my God, did Biden just say that? Or everyone is admitting at that moment that you all know that your entire system, your country, your entire history is illegitimate. Your ancestors are illegitimate. You know, like what you root yourself in the Thomas Jefferson, in the Aristotle, in the so-called great leaders of Britain and the Winston Churchills. You are admitting to yourself, even if you don't realize it, right? You are admitting your own cognitive dissonance, your own cognitive decline, right? Not the cognitive decline, but you're admitting the levels to which you have somehow done those things, right? Created ignorance, just been weirdly ignorant, established yourself into some kind of psychopathic, empathy-free, just malicious state of being. Every time you say that you know, but it's true that they have mask-off moments, right? But the reality is, at all times, every Westerner that participates in that project, right? The only way you can really not is if you stand completely against everything that you are taught, everything that your government, everything that your bosses, everything that your entire country, you know, is for. If you stand against all of that, and obviously we're on the side of the global majority and black indigenous people of color, etc., and like in a real way, not just in like, oh yes, I have a black friend, or oh yeah, I put a Black Lives Matter, I put hashtag queer rights during Pride Month, right? And then you know, or you know, even if you do that for complicit to benefit empire, unless you are actually, you know, doing everything you possibly can in concrete ways, including monetary ways, including showing up in person, including putting your body on the line, including, you know, and digitally sharing and doing whatever you can, you are going to be what I call the unhealed descendants of the Greco-Roman trauma, or you know, you incur additional soul loss as a member of the sick world, right? And you're not necessarily physically sick all the time, but you sometimes it does involve physical sickness because you're spreading bioweapons and they boomerang back onto you like COVID. But anyways, I'm a bit off topic. So that's the cognitive the cognitive decline is real. In one sense, it's always been terrible cognitive state in the West, right? And the shock, but now there's more than just that now, right? Now we're not just having Joe Biden and Donald Trump, octogenarians, you know, barely awake for 5 minutes a day, very very much unable to string together sentences for a lot of they're just throwing insults at each other, right? I think Biden was like, Trump's like, I golf an 8, and Biden's like, no, I golf a 6, and you know, I can swing a golf club, you know, at like 2,000 miles per hour. And Trump's like, oh, you know, I'm much more fit than you. I can walk 10 steps a day. And it's just like, these are two 80-something-year-old, you know, super rich white guys from like this is America. They are the living image of America, right? Boomers. The greatest, they are the greatest that the West has to offer. These two, this is it. These were the pinnacle of, you know, what Aristotle and friends started. This is the greatest they have to offer, right? They are white men who lived during the peak of Western superpowerdom, right? That is gone now. It's already gone. right? And this is the best that I mean, literally, this is who the presidential candidates of the greatest democracy, the greatest, most just country in the world has to offer. Right? Two, spoiled, duplicitous, lying, cowardly, war criminal, literal criminal. At one point, they're fighting over who's a bigger criminal. I'm the only felon. You're the only felon here. I'm looking at the only felon here. Biden is a felon. I mean, you committed so many. It's ridiculous. It's funny because it's not funny, but if it wasn't so tragic, it could be funny. With Biden, is you have committed so much child massacre across the entire world. It's funny because if the United States justice system is not just, otherwise they wouldn't have put 2.5 million people of color to be slaves for Lockheed Martin and Walmart in the prisons of America, the world's largest prison. It's funny because the fact that Donald Trump was convicted of something might actually, if you get convicted of something by the U.S., federal courts, that might actually suggest you might be a better person than not. That's not a guarantee, right? But it's kind of like, if the United States bombs and sanctions you, you're probably doing something good, like trying to feed and house people, and an unjust system like capitalism, which is why the U.S. bombed, sanctioned, and starved Vietnam. Right? Is why they assaulted and they tried to overthrow. Just this week, right? The United States just tried to overthrow with literal fascist military. They just tried to overthrow a government, right? They failed. Now they failed, okay? I was trying to find a good link here. They failed, but the United States just tried to overthrow Bolivia, right? You might have heard about this, right? The Bolivia Trade Federation represents 2 million workers in Bolivia that call for an indefinite general strike and emergency mass mobilization. Why did they do that? But there's a lot more to that story. But they did that because the United States. Trying to see again. No, I don't think I have any more. Yeah. The heroic people of Bolivia have successfully defeated the coup. The people's movements mobilized to defend the democratic government of President Luis Arce. We have always stand with democracy and with democracy and sovereignty. Today we saw Bolivian people rise up against the Bolivian elites and their U.S. masters' attempts to destabilize the country. The Workers' Center, representing 2 million workers, have called for continued vigil and state of alert against any further coup attempts. You see, if you're Bolivian, you don't have mental illness. You don't have the Western mental illness, right? Because like Cuba, right? You're like, okay, the right thing to do is to not have goose-stepping Camacho, Gina, and yes, these are two horrible far-right extremist U.S.-backed leaders, right, in that country, right? In Bolivia, and Gina Yanez became the president after Elon Musk himself said, we will coup whoever we want. We need your lithium. And he admitted on Twitter, right? We're going to take over your country and steal your lithium. It's just classic Western colonialism, racist colonialism, against the indigenous people for global billionaires' profit, And he got the coup done. It lasted less than a year. Through military and economic resistance, including general strikes, the Bolivians undid the coup. They forced her out, right? They forced the U.S.-backed fascist administration. They slaughtered dozens of indigenous people, by the way. So the indigenous socialists in the street with assault rifles, right? This coup that they did in 2019, it was undone, right? Elon and the Western billionaires and the ruling classes have tried to do another one, and this coup was defeated in less than 6 hours. Okay, a general with the U.S.-backed fascist militias. It's just always the same people, right? That's who actually backs Nazism around the world. It's always the West. And the U.S.-backed general, they had like motorcades coming, and they were like, President of the Socialist Indigenous Bolivian MAS Party, you must get out of here. You must leave this. We are taking over, blah, blah, blah. And then the president, like, there's a video of the president, Luis Arce. He's the successor to Evo Morales, a very important leader. He began as a military resistor of the United States and the West, fighting U.S. and Canadian-sponsored paramilitaries, trying to maintain their agriculture and mining operations on indigenous land for billionaire, U.S. Wall Street profit. And Louis Arce, who's the successor, said he actually stared the general down. He said, "You will leave, or we will fight." So the Bolivians saw their leader, right, stare down the world's most horrible, all the same people that Americans know that runs their country, right? People, oh my God, there's billionaires that are, oh my gosh, it's like the rich get whatever they want, and Elon gets all the tax breaks. He's getting 56 billion. We get nothing. We got all these the military industrial complex are blowing up innocent people, doing horrible things around the world. They run our country. These horrible, APAC. Oh my gosh, it's so terrible, right? But you have to pretend like it's democratic, and you have to act like things are fine. Otherwise, you can't have a job in America. Right? In Bolivia, right? You can be an engineer. They have engineers. Bolivia has like lithium refinement factories. They have AI powered, like actual good AI that runs like factories more efficiently. They have AI powered, they have engineers and programmers that work, indigenous people. I believe 60% indigenous people. That's part of why they're so based. The AI powered factories that make glass bottles and make soft drinks. So you can have a job in Bolivia, right? And then you turn on the TV and you go, oh my gosh, there's horrible far right extremists that are doing the bidding of liberals, sponsored by the United States and the collective West. Right? Germany was going to get a lot of their refinement work for them in Germany. UK did propaganda in the Telegraph and the Guardian against Bolivia. So they all work for the United States, all Western governments, all Europe, Canada, etc. And so if you're Bolivian, you can watch this happening. Like, all of the West is against us. This is really terrible. And then you see on your TV, you can watch your president. Imagine you turn on the TV and you watch Joe Biden like stare down the CEO of Lockheed Martin, right? Staring down like the head of ISREAL, right? The billionaires of the world, right? Imagine Joe Biden like saying, "Get the hell out of the White House. I want you out of DC." And not only that, we're going to have a military, because the Bolivians actually called for civil war. They said, if you're going to try to take us over, we are going to militarily fight your capitalist, liberal, back fascist. We're going to fight you, and we're going to kill you. If that's what it takes, we will fight. That's what RCB. Imagine the president of the United States saying, we want the billionaires out, we want imperialism out, we want the liberals out, and we're going to fight a civil war to make sure that we are doing the right thing. This is unimaginable, right, in the United States, right? So that causes like, oh my God, what's wrong with us, right? So that's your mental health cognitive decline. But in Bolivia, you turn on the TV and you watch your president stare down a military, a liberal imperial back fascist coup, and he like stares him down, and he goes like, get the hell out of here, or we're going to fight you. And then the general of the far right military, it's a military threat. He said, I'm going to kill you all, right? We're militarily going to start a war in Bolivia. And the general is like forced out in less than 8 hours. They already had a new general in place. They had cleaned, you see, so when you have evil in your country, you have malicious corruption deep in your country. Like, that's not all the corruption is gone, but like when you have serious, just unacceptable corruption and immorality in your country, then you have a government, you have the people together. It's not just the government, that's not just the president. The people are on that side. The people are like, we will general strike. The people are like, we will take up arms. The people are like, we will take up arms to stop genocide. The people are like, we will take up arms to stop genocide, to make sure economic inequality, racial inequality, and colonialism do not dominate in our country. Right? But that's the American and Western people. They have never, they've never gotten close to that point. That's why they always have the leaders that they have. That's why they have the ruling capitalist, racist, colonialist ruling class. But in Bolivia, the people and the government are together in that. They're like, you have to go. If you don't, we will sacrifice economically. We will sacrifice our lives militarily. The president and the people will sacrifice their lives militarily to stop genocide, to stop capitalism, to stop all of this, right? So the people of Bolivia, they don't have this struggle of, oh my God, what is it? What are we gonna do? I mean, yeah, the white capitalists in Cochabamba, they're like, oh, how are we gonna get another coup done? How are we gonna try, right? But they don't have the moral injury. They don't have the cognitive dissonance of calling yourself the most moral, just, liberal, democratic place, but you know that your country is a one-party, undemocratic plutocracy run by the most immoral people, right? So now that's a problem. That's a people. The people themselves, the masses. They have the masses and the leaders, the government and economic, business and political leaders, even the religious leaders, obviously, and the people and their leaders. All of them have serious mental illness, and obviously there's many things. But one of it is they have this serious problem. All of it together. It's not like, oh, if we get a better government, things gonna get better. Not necessarily. Or if we get a better, if we it's all of it. It's all of it together. This is the reality. It's that the leaders do reflect the country. Biden, as I said, does reflect the United States. Trump and Biden perfectly reflect the United States. They reflect the West. Selfish, cowardly, irrational, can't keep their story straight, liars. I mean, and again, to the extent that you don't go along with that, you are becoming less American. You're becoming less. They would say that's if you talk about communism at all, you'd be like, that's un-American. I mean, it is un-American though. It's un-Western. It's kind of like it's unclear whether there can be. I don't know. Like, this is not really a thing for me to decide because I'm a native Hawaiian in the country of Hawaii, but it's unclear whether there will be there's no, just as one example, there's no such thing as Rome anymore. Nobody calls themselves Romans anymore, right? It's unclear whether there will be anybody calling themselves Americans in 50 years. Even Europeans. It's unclear what will survive of the European project, right? I don't know. It's people will have to work. This all have to be grown out like old kind of damaged toenails. It's kind of like the Chinese even recognize this in Taiwan. A lot of that is like people have been deeply brainwashed and they have been kidnapped, brainwashed, and conditioned by the U.S. that has controlled their government, a lot of their economic and political structure in Taiwan for some time. And they speak more English than Chinese, a lot of them, but by design. While they're still Chinese and they're still part of that country, but like they've been heavily westernized, right? And so the Chinese recognize that like it will take time for generations of these people to get old, and like they're gonna have to. The Taiwanese, like the American, has to struggle through this deep cognitive dissonance of like, oh my God, I thought we were like the best, but why are we taking all this money and trying to fight this ridiculous war for like really bad reasons? And we did, So that like, and in the same way that like. We hope for peaceful reunification, but violent reunification if necessary. But it's kind of like, but the West is like the West is like a giant Taiwan. It's like, but much deeper, obviously. But like, the world hopes for peaceful reunification of their relatives in the United States and Europe and the white world. But violent if they're not gonna violent if necessary. But I mean, ultimately. No amount of violence is really going to do it on a scale of that size, The children of people who have grown up, right? The children of millennials are Gen Z and Gen Alpha, as I talked about last time. Over 50% of Gen Z don't identify as American that are born in America. They don't strongly identify that way. 53, over half of Gen Z don't want to join the military. They refuse. Not because of wokeism or diversity or DEI or any of this nonsense. Not because they just they don't exercise enough or some nonsense. Gen Z and Gen Alpha do way more exercise because they got to have 65 jobs to afford a living, and that's a lot of biking. That's a lot of moving Amazon packages around, right? You're gonna be in a lot better shape, right? Also, you can't afford to get sick, right? This is the lie of the boomer and the Gen Xer. These are the soft marshmallow people like Biden and Trump and Blinken that like didn't have to really work very much to get tons and tons of money, houses, and food and all the things and all the vacations they could ever want, right? Gen Z and Gen Alpha are not joining the military, not supporting the United States as a whole, either party, because of something to do with trans rights or something about Mexicans or immigrant or it's they're not supporting it because they can see plainly in front of their eyes that it's a horrible, immoral thing that's happening, especially with G8, the stuff happening in the Middle East right now, right? Like, and they're like, that's why you have record resignations from the U.S. military, like left and right. People are just leaving. Conscious objectors, because it's hard. It's like literally my conscience cannot take this, right? The United States is the highest. The West is the place with all the conscience objectors, right? Most of the Russian military, they're not, they don't need to draft. They need to fight a lot because there's so much aggression and the military forces are being pushed at them, but they don't need to draft because they're like, oh, I'm happy to defend, ourselves, right? But the United States, the U.S. can't get anyone to sign up because they know that their side is the wrong side of history. They know that they are the stormtroopers. The Gen Z and Gen Alpha know they are Emperor Palpatine stormtroopers. They are bad guys in the They are the bad guys in the movies on the stage of the World Theater. They know that. The Boomer and Gen Xers, they had to find out millennials had to find out when they got to Iraq and were gunning down 16-year-old Arab kids in hospitals in Fallujah. Blowing up people in Iraq and going, oh my God, what the hell am I doing? I just wanted to get a college degree. I wanted to, what am I over here, right? But Gen Z and Gen Alpha, they are being, thankfully, the good news is Gen Z and Gen Alpha are not, they are sparing themselves that horror and that being complicit in these horrible crimes, because they're not even going to sign up to go do that before they already know to not do that before they get there. So the U.S. military that's why they're doing the draft. They're trying to do it. They're going to try to do a draft. As many, left ex-military, ex-imperial stormtroopers have said, like Eyes Left, and I think Mint Press just did a video. That like, a draft is, I basically concur with what I was saying. Was this draft is not going to work because it's only going to further enrage. It's going to have more people hating the U.S. government, like in the Vietnam. It's like Vietnam on steroids, right? More people are going to hate the U.S. government. It's going to further deteriorate the already collapsing United States position. It's going to further the decline. It's going to further the mental decline because then, then you'll have more and more of the U.S. liberal and conservative, all of their leadership going like, we're losing even more validity. What do we do? And so it's like a draft is only going to cause people. And the thing is, even if you successfully draft some people, even historically, the just drafted soldiers, they are not effective fighting forces because they don't believe in what they're fighting for. They're like going to do everything. The reality of the military is actually the military struggles is a lot of where imperial decline happens, right? You have defecting soldiers like, fragging their own commanding officers, right? This was happening. Every Western war has, as I said, there's a statistic, I think, like from way back, there's actually a Black Mirror episode called The Men Against Fire, which is like that 85% of Western soldiers going back centuries, like have by some estimates, 85% of soldiers refused to pull triggers when they got to the field because they saw their fellow working, their fellow common man across the field, whether British versus French, in World War I, they saw these people across the line and they're like, we are just regular oppressed working class people killing each other for wealthy, rich, entitled, like descendants of European monarchs that are ruling us, and these giant banks and these wealthy people that are sitting on their cushy thrones and in their boardrooms sending us off to kill each other, right? So actually, like, huge amounts of the West just refuse to shoot. They refuse to fire. So like drugging people, the Western propaganda, Western education system and conditioning and news and the entire intellectual, what is recommended as good books by New York Times bestsellers and those kind of things, the British, these are what we're talking about now, right? those are all refined ways to brainwash masses of people to do evil acts. That's the whole Western history is just a long, like a mad scientist experiment facility where how can we get like good human beings to do the most horrible things possible so that we can benefit from that. That's basically all the West has ever been. They've been reasonably okay at that. But when you draft people, right, people are going to be like, I didn't even want to go, and you're going to make me fight. You're going to have more and more sabotage. You're going to have more. Those people are not going to fight well at all. They're going to fight as little as possible. They're going to disobey all kind of commands. The U.S. military doesn't even pay very much anymore. They're going to give a slight raise, but it's not even enough to survive nowadays. And on top of that, everybody can see how immoral, as I said, how the West is. That's only going to increase. That will increase the ineffectiveness of the U.S. military. Even if the numbers go up a little bit, it'll be more ineffective. Not that it's very effective. The West has never, as I already said, it's never been very effective at all. Because people fight better. I mean, there's logistics in the technical training and what kind of bombs and missiles you are armed with, and that's all matters, right? But ultimately, right, you can have the best training in the world, but if you don't believe in the trigger, when you go to the field and you have to shoot a bullet at somebody, and you don't believe that you are doing the right thing, and you doubt who you're fighting for. You don't believe in the United States capitalist, so-called democracy. You don't believe in when you have to pull that trigger to shoot the other side, and you believe that they're actually on the right side, you are not going to be an effective fighting force. This is why the U.S. and the West, this is one reason why U.S. and West always lose. There's also poor training, and there's people that are too spoiled, and they're actually not very good at their actual fighting, right? But so whatever the draft force you're going to have, it could, it's gonna internally, it's gonna cause such upheaval in the United States. And inside the military, there's already dissension in the ranks of the U.S. military. Like I pointed it out. There's deep dissent from the left to the liberal conservative. There's like some that support Trump versus those that don't. But the people that the people that are in the military already are in deep dissent. It's not visible because there's a lot of fear, right? Because the military is you follow orders. It's not a democracy in the military. But there's huge dissent in the U.S. military already. It's only going to increase. And then like in Bolivia, right? Now in Bolivia, they're just more honest about this. It's like, well, we support socialism. We support the Socialist Party. We support indigenous, environmental, non-imperial policies. And then the other side is like the people and the military. That's like a lot of them are the same people, right? They're like, well, this part of the military and this part of the people, we support fascism. We support neoliberalism. We support taking money from Elon Musk and the U.S. government that prints it and then throws it at complicit puppets, right? Like this one general. And then and so the people and their military say, well, let's fight then, right? In the United States, they're not at the point of like, okay, well, these Americans support the end of capitalism. These Americans support the end of empire, the end of all of these horrors, all of the war crimes, all of that. And then these Americans, they support continuing the American empire, right? And then a very big thing happens after that, right? Now, sometimes it involves a lot of shooting. Sometimes it involves less. I can't really say what it is, right? The U.S. isn't there yet. The West isn't there yet, right? The Europeans, I don't know. It's possible the U.S. and the Europeans will never get there, and they'll just like decline and decline and decline and decline and decline and decline and decline some more. That's what happened to the Roman Empire. That's what happened to the British Empire. That's what happened to the French Empire. Nobody really did any serious actual revolution where they reinstalled a completely new system, right? Because after the French, they cut a bunch of heads off, and they were very upset at their leaders, and then Napoleon, and then you have colonialism and capitalism kept going there. They never succeeded, but like at the level that other countries have, like Cuba, like Bolivia, and there's very large other countries, right? It's not a guarantee that it's inevitable that you're going to reach a rapid cleaning out of the poison and the mental illness from your country, right? And the Western mental illness, the system itself that is causing all of these problems. It's not a guarantee that you get there. You could just decline and decline and decline and decline and decay, and then who knows, right? Now the difference between the Roman Empire, in the Roman Empire, there was no planetary system of the BRICS. That's another factor, right? In the decline of the Roman Empire, there was no planetary win-win cooperative system that had like economic and military Let me see if I talked about that in recently. Yeah. Going back to this one, there was no China, Russia, Iran, African countries, Asian, Latin American countries, right? Historical, the people that have been suppressed by the Greeks, Roman, British, French, Spanish, American, etc., that have now economic and military planet-wide win-win cooperative system, or they're not necessarily the BRICS are not necessarily at the level of fully exercising all of their power at the moment, but the West is done. The West does not run the world. The U.S. tries to sanction countries, it doesn't do anything. They tried to sanction Russia, nothing happened. Russia got stronger. You tried to start a war with Russia got stronger. The Western military, they fight the poorest Arab country, Yemen. Yemen is winning. They just said, if you bring any more aircraft carriers, we'll sink all your aircraft carriers. And America and Britain, the Great British Empire, the Great French Empire, all of the NATO, all the Europeans, right? The great colonizer Western world, right? The United States, they're all running away from the poorest Arab country right now. Militarily, they lost, big time lost. Not just there. That's not even the most powerful. That is in the multipolar BRICS domain. That's just Yemen, right? I shouldn't say just Yemen. That Yemen is full of people that Yemen don't have the Western mental illness, right? Yemen's people say we need to stop this horrible killing of innocent children and women and starving them to death. The people say we need this, and the government says, right? The actual government, not the one that the U.S. recognizes, right? The West recognizes there's two governments. The two parties in every country are the capitalist, racist, colonialist, duplicitous, corrupt government that the U.S. and the West recognize, right? Right. That's like the formal Yemen government, and then there's the Houthi rebel. Then there's the actual government that's for the people, for equality, for the ending racism, for stopping GENOCIDE, for defending human rights, right? It's the one that's on the other side of the U.S. and the West, right? So that's Ansar Allah or what's known as the Houthi rebels in Yemen. That's why they call them rebels. They're not rebels. They 85% of the country. They have legitimacy. They have more popular vote than the United States government, any party, any Western government, right? But they're called rebels by the West, right? By the U.S. and the European and Canada, etc. They're the evil rebels that are doing everything in their power to stop GENOCIDE, right? That's cognitive dissonance in your mind too. You're like, oh my God, why are we sending these ships, spending our money over there, send these ships over there to go stop people that are suffered so much? Anyway, so now the difference between the collapse of the Roman Empire, there was no international system of that scale, right? Now, when the Roman Empire collapsed, there was a Silk Road that emerged that went from China all the way through Afghanistan. It went through Syria, to Central Asia, into West Asia, to the Levant region, Palestine, right? Lebanon. It went into Africa. It went through North Africa, into East, through Djibouti. It was a huge trade route 1,000 years ago, right? After the collapse of the Roman Empire. They had already established a lot of trade even before that, but it really prospered more after the threats coming from the West. I mean, I'm not talking in multi-thousand year timescales now, obviously, but this is where the actual political change happens, right? Not in some ridiculous election happening in a fake democracy every 4 years. That's not where anything interesting happens. Nothing changes every 2 to 4 years in these so-called elections. It's the same people running everything all the time. If anything, it actually gets slightly better when there's a Republican wins because people actually take more action because they worry that they could become the fascist country they already are, right? But when there's a Democrat, they don't think about that. So, but 1,000 years ago, there was win-win cooperation across that entire region, right? And then the Roman and then it's kind of like the great ages. This time, like there were already women's rights. There was no slavery was banned in 2,000 years ago in China, just as one example. They had the invention of paper and the black powder they were using to celebrate was already, they already had all the weapons that the West had is all based on technologies invented in the East and the South, right? In China, and Turtle Island had its own win-win prosperous. They had huge 100,000 person cities like Cahokia. They were trading, and they were doing. There's a lot of great things was happening around the world, right? People were prospering. They were not killing and fighting each other needlessly for a tiny minority of corrupt upper class, people with serious mental illness, or psychopathy, like the West was, right? And then what happened was that in the colonial era, it was basically, from that vantage point, all of that region, right? Asia, Africa, Latin America there was a huge expansion from Europe, from the West, that subdued, killed, enslaved, and crushed and stole resources from all of that 90% of Earth, right? What it's called the East or the South, the global majority. And what happened was that, and for a period of time, they were able to maintain that exploitation. In Hawaii, obviously, we had dole plantations, we had slave plantations everywhere, but not just in the U.S., it's all over the world. They plundered Africa, they plundered India, they slaughtered. Winston Churchill laughed at 27 million dead Indians that he starved to death. They terrorized and attacked and assaulted everywhere. They didn't really have, the military ability was never actually that strong. Mostly it was through terror and lies, right? And when the rest of the world realized, wait, if we are able to take our countries back, militarily and economically struggle against these colonialist, capitalist, racist Europeans, that we can actually take, it will be difficult, but we can, over time, we can decolonize, and when we work and struggle along with our other 90% of Earth that is also struggling with us, we can make progress faster, right? And so in 1840, you had the Britain went from the 30 times poorer than China to suddenly many times richer than China in a very short period of time, right? Where China was the GDP, in GDP terms, it was the most populous, and it was the wealthiest country in the world for 2,000 years. And in a century, and they were one of the most successful. They were at the center of a lot of this win-win trade and cooperation. And then in 100 years, they suffered. For 100 years, they became one of the top 5 poorest in the world. And then from the mid 20th century to now, China has gone from basically almost the poorest in the world to now the most prosperous in the world, and also economically, technologically, in every possible name, even morally, lifting people out of poverty and giving everyone the opportunity around the world to not deal with the colonialist system. And then obviously Russia as well was a country that was extremely poor, extremely poor, and then had a communist revolution, and the West tried to stop that, and Russia has gone from that to, it had some success in the 20th century. The capitalist West, celebrated in 89 with the fall of the Berlin Wall, but between 89 to now, that's what, 40, it's barely a blink of an eye, right? In historical terms, from 1989 to 2024, it's 35 years. That's less than half a human lifetime. They are outgrowing Europe. They're outgrowing America. The military is many times powerful than the U.S. and the Europeans and the entire West combined. And Russia and China are linking up along with Iran and the rest of the 90% of the Earth, that are ending the Western domination that never deserved to dominate anything, because it was all the worst people in the world, right? And the worst systems in the world. And so the difference between the Roman Empire, right, where there was not really a planet-wide organized system, right? There wasn't a real significant understanding of what the West was. There wasn't a strong enough understanding what the West was, what lengths they would go to, right? The Romans expanded to, again, the south of Europe, North Africa, and part of West Asia, but it was very contained. Romans didn't take more than 10% of the Earth, right? Now, the second time, it's really the Roman expansion. It's more than that, but I mean, if you look at Western expansion, the Roman expansion, and then there's the last 500 years of the colonial era, and that was the really big expansion that took the whole Earth, right? In one sense, that was already a planetary empire, but it was split between the British, French, right, German. They carved up every continent, but they did. In one sense, it's been a 500-year planetary empire, right? Because it's been some Westerner plus Japan, some European plus Japan. The difference between like 1492 and 1950 and after, or 1492 and 1945, right, is that after 1945, it's colonialist, capitalist, white, racist, horrible people and systems in one country, the United States, right? Right? Or it's ostensibly in one place, DC, as opposed to Paris, London, Brussels, Berlin, right? Tokyo. Instead of like distributed all around these different Western countries, it's all in one country. But in one sense, from the East perspective, it's kind of, and after World War II, the West pretends like it's good. Right? Before that, it doesn't try to pretend. It's all mask off. After 1945. But anyway, long story short, so the Roman Empire didn't have to deal, the successors to the Roman Empire, right? The British, French, Spanish, they didn't have to deal with, but they didn't have to deal with an empowered, not necessarily that, I'm not saying that the Asians, Africans, the Latin Americans, and Pacific Islanders, the global majority was not smart before, but they did not fully understand and recognize what the West was and what it was capable of and how exactly to resist it, right? But since the last 500 years, right, the global majority have recognized, oh, okay, well, we have to get militarily and economically and technologically, we have to do X and Y and Z, right? And that's been that's been a lot of growth of indigenous peoples of the world, of Africans, Asians. It was a learning experience because we'd never encountered anything like that. We had never encountered anything so horrible and malicious and watched people just brainwash their entire lower working classes and then send them off to go exterminate so many innocent people. That just wasn't happening. That was unheard of. It was like an alien culture, right? This horrible culture was an alien thing to us. So, oh my gosh, this is what they will do. And then it's kind of like, like in Hawaii, we tried our best to stop that with, making alliances all around the world. We were one of the last to fall. We got as far as we did because Hawaii is like one of the remote, farthest places from Europe on the earth, right? It's one of the factors. It took a long time. They had to cross an entire continent. Europe has to cross an entire continent and then thousands of miles of ocean to get to Hawaii. And you have to cross all of Asia, Africa, and then more, and then to get to Hawaii. And it's a lot of open ocean, which the Europeans are bad at navigating, right? Compared to like native Pacific people like myself. You can find tiny dots of land, 1 mile long, 2 feet above sea level, across 5,000 miles of ocean easily. Anyway, so long story short, the West's ability to, they don't have the ability to move the nexus of the empire from Rome to Paris, or from Paris to Amsterdam to Britain, or Barcelona. They can't just, okay, well, this will be the new empire, right? In one sense, like, because the Western narratives, the empires rise and fall, and it's 250 years, and it involves these stages. This is a lot of nonsense in my view. There's never really been a rise and fall. It's just been one long continuous unhealed Greco-Roman, British versus Spanish blob. It's just one. It's like a morass. It's like an endless, slightly increasing and decreasing. Thousand-eyed giant hippo. With like cancerous warts all over it, just gnawing on everything. Sometimes it gets smaller, sometimes it gets bigger. Sometimes it breaks into pieces, right? Like it fractures into subdivisions like British, French empires, but it's really one entire system altogether. The whole entire West is one, and you know it's one because they act in lockstep, right? Now, sometimes the British and the French and the British, they'll make a big hullabaloo about, oh, yes, we're so much different and we will fight you. Macron talks about the Anglos, right? And the Americans will get mad at the French, and they'll name their fries freedom fries just to stick it to the French. But they all work together, right? When it comes to what really matters to them, the real values, colonialism, capitalism, killing as many people as possible for your own personal selfish benefit, right? And stealing and enslaving them. The British and the French, they all come together when it comes to Middle East, Africa. They all invade countries together. U.S. and France invading Libya. The U.S. support France in New Caledonia in the genocide there. against the Kanaki people. They're all together when it comes to the world, because they know that all of their power, all of their wealth, everything they have is based upon the planetary plunder of the global majority and the global resources and all of the land and the agriculture and all of the gold and the lithium, right? It's why Europe and the US, they disagree, and then we're all coming together to try to coup Bolivia, right? There's only been one empire ultimately. It's been the West, It's been, it not always necessarily has people from the western end of Eurasia, but I mean, it's when it comes to power that they work together, and they sometimes have fights between each other sometimes over who exactly gets a little more or a little less. But the greatest violence is reserved for the black, the brown, and Asian, and the people that they are enslaving or crushing and stealing from. Sometimes they have a little more internal turbulence when the working classes get more upset and they start having possible, uprisings inside. But the greatest violence is not reserved for their own, Western citizens. It's reserved for the people around the world that they are taking the most actually from, based upon a racist, colonialist, capitalist perspective. And that time of being able to dominate, everyone else outside is over. The rest of the world. So in one sense, this is a 2,000-year cycle, right? Because the rest of the world didn't have the capacity to resist those systems, right? The Romans didn't get that far, right? Before they collapsed, right? The Romans didn't get that far before they imploded. But in the last 500 years, they did get very far, right? And now the rest of the world has gotten wise to that. They have built up, and now, it's kind of like fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. And the rest of the 90% of the world will not be fooled again. They're not going back there. So this is in the future. Historians might view this as the post-West era. This is the actual post-colonial era. Maybe it'll be like the post-psychopathy era, because there's a time when that doesn't dominate the world in any significant way. It's the post-evil era. It's the good era. The global planetary Silk Road, win-win cooperation, respecting other people's rights, just being a normal human, right? Sometimes making mistakes, doing the right thing, but when a lot of people do the wrong thing and accumulate vast quantities of power, it gets stopped by the people rising up and getting rid of those oligarchs, extremists or fascists before it gets too big, right? It's not like Chinese and Cubans and Hawaiians and Africans and Europeans have like different DNA significantly. It's not some biological, thing. It's not something in the water. Because the Spanish have nice beaches. It's really cold up north. Yeah, well, the Spanish have nice beaches. I was talking to Holly about this. Italians have really nice weather, nice beaches. There's a lot of nice. They even have good food. Oh, it's just the terrible food in Britain. It's like dry plastic fork taste. It's like dry napkin food in Britain and American. They're just agitated and pissed off because their food sucks. That's why they're invading everyone else. But the thing is, Italians have good food, and Spanish have good. They have reasonably good food there. Like nice pasta. Still doing colonization, joining the Holy Roman Empire. Still in NATO. You got little baby Mussolini, and the original Mussolini. It's not that. It is for whatever reason. It's the in a dialectical way. It's a failure for whatever internal and external reasons to organize at a high enough level people culturally, economically, socially, even spiritually in a certain sense, to come together and to fight with internal and external ways their unjust oligarch ruling classes that are brainwashing all of their people into being another generation of unhealed descendants of this Western system. Right? Now, and the difference is now, for the last 2,000 years, it was not contained. For the next 2,000 years, the Western unhealed system will be contained to the United States, to Europe, to Canada, to Australia, right? We'll see what Japan's going to do. What Japan, India is going through, they have their own internal problems to deal with. That's they're kind of like, where are you going to be in BRICS? Or are you going to be are you going to have your country full of people that are going to massacre people based on ethnic differences, like Muslims? So they're like, because India has suffered a deep colonial inundation, and they have their own problematic history going back, right? So it's like, but the thing is, there's no future for India if they don't clean up their act, right? If you want to join the West, then you will go down with the West, because there's no future economically. If you most of India is going to be smarter than that, but we can't guarantee, right? Just like we can't guarantee what America will be. But either way, Africa, Asia, Latin America, Russia and China is where the story is happening now, and Africa, that's all joining in. South America is all joining in, right? This is the future, right? They are the majority. The BRICS are the majority of the world economy. They're the majority. They're the vast majority of the most powerful militaries. They are leading technologically, right? China just brought back moon rocks from the dark side of the far side of the moon, and they're gonna build moon bases and Mars bases, right? There's no chance. There's no chance. There is no chance for the West to even try to catch them. So what's gonna happen now is, and this is where the mental illness comes back, right? What's gonna happen now in the future centuries, or the future, I don't know, I can't see 2,000 years in the future, but what's going to happen now in the future time, in the post 2020s, as a nexus point in human history, in Earth civilizational history, after the 2020s is going to be the time in which it is going to be the time of the win-win cooperative global South and global East. The Silk Road will dominate the Earth. The Silk Road the healed world will maintain its healed world, and the unhealed world will choose to heal. The unhealed, mentally ill Western world will through whatever it means, going to therapy. You gotta not going to a white boomer therapist. A white westernized therapist is going to tell you wrong things, like, you just got to buy some bath bombs and here, take some pills and that'll fix you. That's not actually what you need. You need like actual black indigenous people of color, radical evolutionary, anti-capitalist, anti-colonialist therapists that could actually tell you what there needs to be like rehabilitation for some troopers in a civilizational sense. This is like in BRICS, they had a meeting. They're talking about what is civilization itself. That's the level. That's a scale of the talks they're having. There's nothing like that is even happening barely at all in the U.S. and in the G7 countries, right? But that is the therapy that's needed. Is not just how can I be happy and survive capitalism and maybe get over the time my parents beat me or didn't give me enough Nintendo games or my abusive partner. It's beyond just that. The mental health is not that. People are like, why am I feeling so terrible? There's a show called Big Mood, right? Where it's like, why am I feeling so terrible? Is it because I economically can't afford to survive? Is it because I'm watching all these horrible wars happening, the climate's collapsing, my entire country, my friends buying an apocalypse, trying to get an apocalypse bunker and learning how to like skin a deer and storing canned goods with the tiny amount of money that our parents left us after they died. It's all of that. But it's bigger than just economically it's hard. It's bigger than just my parents did something to me. That's what Western therapy is usually. It's way beyond that. It's civilizational. It's completely world. It's all of the history. It's all of the world. It's all of reality, the culture, everything you think you know, everything about who you think you are, right? That's the level of therapy, if you can even call it that. That's the soul restoration, right? The soul restoration of the West that has to happen to even begin to deal with this mental decline of the subjects that have, for whatever sad reasons, grown up in the empire as it dies, right? So. And it's gotta be, but that's what it's gonna be. It's gonna be the next 2,000 years is the next 50 years is gonna be the era of rehabilitation. So hopefully it's not violently. Some people will be violently rehabilitated into compost. They're dying in wars right now. I'm not even saying that it's not. That's literally what's happening. They're dying in Ukraine. They're dying in U.S. military is going to get blown up. They're getting blown up. They're getting killed. They're not reporting on it that much, but U.S. assets, U.S. funded assets, their proxies are dying right now. Yeah, they're also killing innocent people, but their soldiers and their military craft are being destroyed as we speak. Right now, you can see some of them on the TV. When you watch a red triangle, that's when you see a red triangle show up in a TikTok video or in a non-Western feed, because it's always somebody who doesn't identify as an American or is actually trying to it's against the empire. We'll show you the red triangle. When you see the red triangle, that is a dosage of mental illness medication coming from Palestinian resistance, Hezbollah, Yemen, Iran, coming from a global South country. When you see Bolivia, right, crushing the U.S. coup, that is a pill of mental illness medication. Going, oh yeah, oh no, we can't do that anymore, right? You should, and people, the U.S. and the Europeans, when Elon, tries to get the lithium and he can't get it, that should be a pill for Elon. Now, Elon is too far gone. Now, and some people will be violently rehabilitated into compost. If you want to go full GENOCIDE, then you're gonna be, you're gonna be stopped. If you want to go that full, you're not gonna be allowed to go back into the colonial era. You're not gonna be able to be a Roman again. You can't just go into Africa, go into Asia and take stuff and kill people. You will be stopped. The Europeans will try and they will be stopped. And they're probably going to try again. In 10 years, 5 years, 10 years, they might try again. It's going to get increasingly delusional. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be increasingly geriatric, like Biden and Trump decaying on stage and rotting corpses in live view, right? There's going to be people that are going to try to go into Africa and they're all going to get smacked down and killed before they even get there. There's going to be Americans that try to go into Asia and they're all going to be crushed before they even get there. They're going to be, and they're going to keep trying because it's a process that takes time. It's a civilizational restoration of soul, civilizational therapy, civilizational healing takes. There's a combination of violent and less violent, educational. There's a whole variety of ways, but the reality, the base level truth is that it is not gonna happen again. Outside of something I don't even know what would stop this process. Things that could slightly slow or could accelerate the process, right? When an election happens in the West, maybe you slightly slow or accelerate the actual democratization of the world, but it's not going to stop it. There's no democracy happens in the West, but the U.S. will have have a more like bad looking, stupid, racist face like Trump, or it's going to have also a racist, stupid, and also more catastrophically bad. And Biden has sometimes worse policies than Trump. Trump at least was like, maybe we shouldn't be in that many wars. Maybe we should try to make peace with North Korea. Maybe we should just think about it, right? Just think about it. I mean, he didn't really do it very well, right? But it's kind of like Trump might accidentally do something, right, that is ultimately might actually be better for Americans, accidentally, not because he really cares about Americans, but accidentally. But Biden will guarantee do the worst possible thing, almost, right? He'll do whatever the masters tell him that it's going to be even more out. Sometimes it's even more out to lunch than the politicians, right? Because the West is full of mental illness and psychopathy, and they're a bunch of fools and spoiled rich brats that don't know what the hell they're doing, and they're just running around with money, trying to burn the planet, making more generative AI, Facebook shrimp Jesus with everybody's water that they don't have. It's just like, right? That's not it. There's no solution there. Even technologically, the U.S. and the West have nothing new. They have nothing to offer. It's really novel for them, right? For 500 years, the West has at least been able to claim, even if they didn't invent it, like black women actually put the man on the moon, and a lot of the technologies, the paper and the black powder, they all stole that from China. But the West has been able to at least claim that we have the best technology. We're the most advanced. Like London is where it is. And then New York, this is where the best thinkers are, right? Berlin, this is where all the smartest people in the world are. And San Francisco, this is where the future lies. The invention, the computer technology, everything. nanotech and immortality technology, spacecrafts. America, we're gonna do it all. We lead. No, China leads in every possible domain, and other countries are even Iran has better solar power, solar panels. They make themselves and cars. Iran has their own electric car factories. America don't even have those. Not in any. They have no even capacity. So technologically, that's just being like, oh my God, we don't have the latest stuff. That's a whole. Think of all of the white nerds. That's why Reddit is having like Reddit's been having a lot of internal civilizational mental illness healing has to do, because like we're or people like the Reddit is basically what a lot of was the white nerd world. It's kind of more becoming like, am I the asshole? Like women going, should I still be in this relationship? That's a big chunk of Reddit. It's like, should I still be in this abusive relationship with this sexist white guy who is mad about Star Wars Acolyte because wokeness is killing Star Wars, when it's just lesbians are having interracial cool relationships and trying to stop Empire, and the Jedis are actually bad. People getting mad at Star Wars. I mean, I don't think I want to be in a relationship with guys who are going to get mad that there's more women and people of color in movies. I mean, cinematically, as part of the healing is you're going to have to deal with the fact that most of the world isn't white guys. That's like 5% of the world, maybe. And cinematically, like, that's, that part of the therapy is going through the cognitive dissonance of like, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to see myself in every movie. Yeah, there will never be any Star Wars or good movies. Or not good movies. There will never be any like big like movies seen around the world, big blockbuster films and shows that star white guys ever again. There may be shows that star white guys, but they're like, uncorked. They're like some crap right wingers, badly filmed, badly written, badly scripted. Nobody wants to watch it. I've seen some of these right winger movies, right? Or it's just like the white winger movies. It's like a bunch of white dudes like badly doing a Mad Max. It's like, it's pathetic. Nobody's gonna watch those ever again. All the movies that are gonna ever be made, because people want to watch movies that shows the world that is actually has the money to buy their movies and buy and watch their shows. Nobody can afford to watch anything, in America. Imagine even if you're a capitalist corporation, you want to make some money sometime. You're not gonna make shows for the broke Western world that can't afford jack anything, because they're spending all their money trying to pay to shoot some more missiles at children in Gaza, right? Nobody can afford any of their subscriptions anymore. They have to chase the whales. They have to try to charge $10,000 to put your AI generated face into some Kevin Spacey, Ben Shapiro garbage they try to make some money. The answer is there will never be any. There will never be any all-white dude cast or all-white something cast. There are not going to be any more Star Wars, right? This Episode 4 Star Wars. I mean, it's a great show, but you're not going to have a show with a white lady and 2 white dudes as the protagonists ever again that are very high quality, that billions of people will watch. Never again will that happen. That's the end. That's part of the end of the West. You will not dominate the show. Bridgerton is I will watch it. Star Trek Discovery is a great show. I mean, there's white guys in it, the guy from Battlestar Galactica, but you're not gonna see you will not see yourself in the sense of who you want to see in the way that you did, in the same way that the U.S. and the Europeans will not be able to take all of the world's resources for white guys. It's done. You have to go through the stages of loss and grieving of that. You got to get on that. You got to get on that sooner than later. If you're still somebody who thinks that it's the wokeism that's destroying you, it's not the wokeism that's destroying you. You were never very good to begin with, and now you're just being called on it because the rest of the world has got out from under the slave plantation is kick your ass. It's not wokeism. Young people are not soft and woke, and that's why they don't join the military. They're actually stronger than you economically, mentally, and they don't have COVID 25 times because a lot of them are masking at the pro-PALSTINE protest. And they have to work harder to afford their basic needs, and they're not joining because they're morally better than you. But I hear this narrative a lot. That's what I'm trying to directly talk about that. Like, believing that, it's the problem is the wokeism or something, and then it's just that is increased. That is additional denial of basic reality, That is another layer of denial. Even if the West could get people to join its military, nobody should join the military. It's good that nobody wants to join the Western military. Any moral human being. The fact that anyone joined a Roman legion, a British, a French, a Spanish, or American military is a failure of humanity. It's a failure of collective humanity to educate their own people so they know what their militaries are doing, and that people should have. There should have been 99% conscious objectors in Rome, Greece, Britain, France, Spain, and the U.S. for the last 2,000 years. The fact that it's taken until 2024 to have a majority of American and Westerners, young people, beginning to object is the success. The success of guerrilla, of some kind of external education coming through TikTok. And through Black and people of color and revolutionary activities of socialistic communists inside the West. The fact that there are now majorities of young people that don't want to sign up for Western militaries is the first light of success of actual education in the actual West. It's the beginning of morality in the West. It's the beginning of the healing. Americans should celebrate that as a victory, right? Yes, people know that our militaries and our governments and our empires are the worst. Yay, that should be a but everybody's like, oh my God, how do we get them to sign up more? That's increasing your mental illness. There should have never been anyone ever signed up to the British, American, French, Roman, or Greek militaries. You should have just traded peacefully with the Chinese silk that was coming through Athens. You should have just traded peacefully with the African instruments and art that was coming up from across the Mediterranean. You should have just traded peacefully with the Native Americans rather than kill them all and put black slaves on, with backing of your military. Nobody ever should have signed up for any European, American, Canadian, Australian, Greco-Roman military ever. The world would have been a better place, but that failed. And now it will never succeed again. It's the end. The rest of the world's like, we're not going to disarm ourselves because we know you seem to, but it's actually Putin himself is like, he actually spent a lot of time. He was in the, he's in the KGB. He was around the world. He was an intelligence agent. He actually has friends in Germany and in the UK, right? And but then he actually was like, oh my God, I didn't realize how much the West just hates us. They hate Slavic people. I didn't realize how deep that was and how stupid they would become. But now that I know how stupid and violent and vile and racist you are, you think that we are going to disarm? You think we're going to work with you? No, we're not going to work. I'm done talking to you. You want to talk? The U.S. just called up Russia and said, "Oh, sorry, you blew up lots of children with cluster bombs on your beach. We might blow up some more children with cluster bombs on your beach and do war crimes. Is that okay? Hey, Russia, is it okay we keep killing women and children in your territory? Is that okay? Because we might do that some more. Because I don't even know. What do you say to that? Why don't you stop supporting Nazis, supporting fascists? Why don't you stop killing women and children? Right? I don't even know what to. I don't know. I was like, what would I say to that? Stop killing innocent women and children, and then admitting that with your political. Anyway, just right. So the rest of the world is like, we are done. We are done talking to you. We're done talking to you. You gotta grow up. If you try to attack us some more, we will keep you contained in everything west of Moscow, everything west of Belarus. How much of Ukraine you want to lose? You're gonna stay out of there. Okay, you're not going back in Africa. Okay, Niger's uranium is Niger's now. France, your Eiffel Tower can go dark. It's not gonna turn back on until you grow up. Right? Stop joining your military. Stop being a coward and learn how to deal equally with African people. Stop banning Algerians from being citizens. Stop, you're not getting anything back. They're trying in New Caledonia. That's going to be over soon. I predict that soon all Western colonies will be drying up at a faster and faster rate. It is happening already. Right? They tried in Bolivia. They're trying in Haiti. Kenya is having uprising. People are doing the same thing in Bolivia, as in Bolivia. We are not going to put up with this anymore. Africans collectively, we are done putting up with this. In fact, we have much better deals coming from the East, from our other places that have been colonized and suffered under colonialism and imperialism. We're not putting up with you anymore. So you Europeans and Americans, this is going to be hard. This is going to be very hard. You will grow up and you will learn to treat people with respect and not be belligerent and just kill and lie and cheat and steal and do this stuff. You're going to stop lying, cheating, stealing, and killing. Or you're going to freeze to death. You're going to starve. You're going to go hungry. You're going to get sad. I mean, you might kill each other. You're going to have fascism. You have fascism in your country. Your country's already fascist. But no, you'll just have your hatred people attacking and cannibalizing each other. I mean, and if that's what you're going to do, stay in Europe, stay in America, stay in your country, and you got to solve your own problems. This is another thing, right? You're like, oh my God, I got to leave America and go to Britain. I mean, you're going to go to a place with even less food that have like 3 rotten carrots? Oh my God, I'm going to go to Ukraine. Yeah, you're going to go to the front line and die with all your Nazis that you made? Liberal? Oh my God, I got to leave America and go to Australia. Which is also going through its own problems and is suffering because it's trying to stop trade with the number one trading partner. It's funding its military to stop trade with its number one trading partner, that's China. What are you going to do? No, you got to solve your own problems. No, there are people, luckily for you, there are people from healed civilizations and from the global south, the global majority, like myself, who are willing to try to give you offer you a little bit of therapy. Civilization scale therapy that's going to help you come out from that. But if you don't take that, I guess you're going to freeze and starve and bad things will happen. And then your fellow people that have been the people that have, the people that the liberals fund, they might come after you. That has happened. The people that the so-called progressives that have not succeeded at, they're just like liberal 2.0, like ALC. I mean, I guess they're just going to come for you then. But the reality is, there's not going to. The rest of the world will keep offering, hey, are you ready to work with us? Are you ready to work with us? No? Okay, go back on timeout. Hey, Americans, are you ready to work with us? No? Okay, go back to your room then. And like molder in your dark, hot heat domes. Surrounded by broke, racist people, I guess. Hey, Europe, are you ready to? Oh, you want to freeze some more? Okay, go freeze some more. That's it. That's the deal. And like, so that's why it's ultimately in the interest of Americans, Canadians, Europeans, white people that are white inside because of how they were raised. Like the Taiwanese are raised as Americans. I was a Hawaiian. I was raised as an American, but I'm like I'm like 20 years ahead of you because I'm trying to get rid of that for the last 20 years of my life. Spent the first 20 years being pushed to be a high frequency trading Goldman Sachs algorithm programmer, stormtrooper with Excel spreadsheet characteristics. But I'm trying to stop doing that. So I'm trying to like give you an advanced warning right now. You want to get on that. Trying to leave the West is ultimately you're not going to be able to do that. You're not going to be who you were in another country. You're going to have to. You can move to like China. People moving to other places, right? But most of them don't want to move to China. They want to move to European country or Canada or something. You don't realize these countries are a lot of them are worse off than you, and they're no different than you. You're not going to get a good deal. Oh my God! You mean the so-called social democracy of the European, Scandinavian, Germany? These are all just even more racist bulwarks against Russia with healthcare, so that America can recruit people to go man the ICBMs and the jets. Oh my God! You mean they're actually not very good countries? Oh my God! Yeah, there's nowhere to go. You're gonna have to fix your own problems. Anyways, that's the end of this stream. It's 1:45. Time to go. So if you appreciate the stream, don't forget you can actually supposed to. I didn't really comment about the decline of empire. So, but who won the debate is the BRICS won the debate. The global South won the debate because the United States, the completely brain dead, absolute dementia-ridden 27 rounds of Epsilon, Omicron, Delta, brain-addled zombie old white man clowns who were never good before they became cognitively annihilated. they're on display for the world. So who won the world? Africa won. Africa won the American presidential debate. Who won? Asia, China, and the BRICS won the presidential debate. Indigenous people won the presidential debate. You know, we Native Hawaiians, we won the presidential debate. It's a great victory. American liberal and conservatives were telling everyone else, stop sharing the American presidential debate. This is something that only Americans need to see. No, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. It accurately reflects the decline of the empire. Americans should watch some of the. Don't watch the whole thing. It's boring, but you know you should watch at least a little bit, and then go, oh my God, that's where we're at. Yeah, that's where you're at. How are we going to support Black and Indigenous people of color and whatever formation of forces internally and externally that can help us to get rid of this mental illness that we all have in the systems that we're in, right? That's what should be the outcome of this. Is like, how are we gonna take the Robitussin and the Dimetapp now? How are we gonna take our chemotherapy now that we know that we have this serious decline, right? How are we gonna take that civilizational therapy now? That should be the question that people should be asking. Everyone, don't watch the whole thing. Watch some of the best, most entertaining clips of Biden going, oh, you committed more crimes than me, buddy. And he's like, hey, buddy, remember that time you blew up all those children and all the wars you've supported? That was a crime too, buddy. Hey, I got convicted. Hey, I golf better than you. I mean, just watch that. That's all you need to know. Is that like, it's just a slap fest of who golfs better than the other, right? It's just ridiculous, right? And then now that you see what a joke you are, right? Try to not be a joke anymore. Try to get better. That should be the solution. And that's who won the American presidential debate. There you go. That's my verdict. Okay. If you'd like to support us, don't forget, if you would like to support us for the cognitive civilizational therapy, we as a Native Hawaiian resistors of imperialism and colonialism do our best to deliver to you. Consider directly supporting us through Ko-Fi at ko-fi.com/cyberspook. Thanks a lot to George Bervin for your support. If I see you, thank you a lot for your payments for this mental health treatment regime. I don't think Medicare and Medicaid will be accepted. I don't think they're going to pay off for this, but thank you very much. So we appreciate the support. Anyways, and you can also support us through patreon.com/Neofeud. At patreon.com/Neofeud, you can also get access to the behind the scenes of what we're working on when it comes to the other games and the like Neofeud 2. I'm very close. I'm like very close to done with Neofeud 2. I got to do an update soon. I'm looking forward to showing that. I'm going to show some Neofeud 2 on the Twitch stream later on today. But also, you can support us at our Stopping the Colonialist Capitalist World with international indigenous conversations from Okinawa to the Turtle Island Native Americans and other Pacific peoples like our relatives in Ocean Lani in Saipan and the North Marianas region. And of course, lots of Neofeud 2 updates. And yeah, you can also you also get access to the Silver Spook Discord and the Silver Spook University. Like I said, what do we need to do? What do you need to be doing now, right, to prepare for what is coming? What has happened? What the aftermath of the end of the Western domination and the multipolar world that's already begun, and now is the unraveling of the mind, right? Really, it's economically and militarily, it's already done. So what you can do is Silver Spook University is all of my videos are Western rehabilitation, soul restoration therapy. I try my best. Sometimes I do it whatever I can, but I don't have a lot of time and energy in my day. I'm trying to make whatever amount of content we can, given like being a full-time parent and a full-time indie game writer, programmer, artist, and musician. It's a lot. And also stream, like 12 hours a week on four separate streams. So, but all of that content I have put out there, educational videos on economics, history, politics, hard and soft science, art, pop culture analysis, and all kind of other topics. Obviously, I talk about games and science fiction. That's like my what I spend a lot of my time doing. And you can get, but all these topics are covered, and you get access to all of that for the low price of just being a Patreon at any level. So it's a lot. Silver Spook University. way cheaper than any Western university. Not complicit in GENOCIDE. It won't put you in $200,000 of student debt. And I can't teach you electrical engineering, but there's lots of ways that you can learn that. But it's when it comes to these other topics, we do cover all of that. Anyways, you can also support us at Neofeud by grabbing games like Neofeud. Neofeud is on sale right now, so don't forget to run on down there and grab it if you like retro games, adventure games, 90s style point-and-click adventure games, and that are especially ones that are from a anti-capitalist, anti-colonialist games where a cyborg social worker, a delinquent ex-con robot, and a ex-trillionaire ex-princess all try to heal their damage from all the things I've been talking about in Billionaires and Floating Palaces. If you like to play get Neofeud, it is a game that is on Steam on sale right now. Go grab it before it goes off of sale in the Steam summer sale. You can also leave even a very short review if you liked it. It is to help us to get the game discovered in the Steam algorithm, and that really helps us a lot. Also, you can get Neofeud on itch.io for Windows and for Mac and for Linux. It is a game that is on sale on itch, and it's also a game that the maximum revenue comes to us when you pick it up there. So if you want to you can also pay any amount you want on itch. So if you want to pay more than what the game is on sale for, you can do that. And of course, there's other games like Decolonators and Digistar and Pigeon with Gun. And Woman is a book by Holly, who was raised in right-wing evangelical Protestant Christianity, and it is a book that dunks on that right-wing Protestant Christianity. And it is also free, or you can donate some money when you pick it up. You can also follow at Silverspoon Games at Octodon.social and at Silverspoon Games at Mastodon.social on Mastodon, which is our presence on that site. And of course, you can follow at Silverspoon Guy on Twitter. You can follow at Silverspoon Guy, which is my personal account. And then you can also follow Silverspoon Games for the games related stuff. And of course, you can also follow Terminus C, which is Terminus Cyberstar, a cyberpunk RPG that I'm the content director and lead writer of. And coming at some point. And you can also follow Holly, who is at the Tech Fairy partner here, married to myself, our great moderator here, always helping drop the relevant information in the links in the chat, and more for the KNX TV show as well. Land back free Hawaii and listening to music, and always and parent and caregiver and educator here at the Silver Spoon Cooperative with two our native Hawaiian children. And anyways, so don't forget you can follow Holly as well. And thank you to all the people on the list of this Patreon list. Without your support, it does become difficult for us to keep doing this work. So thank you so much to all of you. And thanks everybody for watching. And until next time, let's work on educating, re-educating, and trying to heal from this mental illness and mental decline that is everything I just talked about. Until next time, have a good time, and we'll